Damien said, "Hey Craig, do you think we'll be busy in the last few weeks of the transfer window?" It depends what you mean by busy. So the Curtis Jones move to Inter Milan, again, that looks like there is some credibility to them coming back in. Some reports suggest they're going to come back in at 35 million euro. Some reports suggest 40 million euro. But ultimately, a lot of the reports are suggesting that yes, he's coming in, or they're coming back in. So you would imagine at this point, there doesn't look to be much movement behind the scenes for Liverpool and Curtis Jones to come to an agreement. Myself and Connor covered a lot of these things on the Anfield Agenda podcast, which a new episode went up earlier on. If you're not in our WhatsApp, really is probably the time to sign up and join. You can do so with the link in the description, because that's where we put all of these things in immediately. Yeah, look, there is a lot happening, but what is busy? All right, let's try and link it together. Barcola, look, you know where I am with Barcola. I fully believe that deal gets done, and I really don't think we've had to be concerned about regarding hijacking or anything like that. I think it gets done. But the interesting part for me is, let's use Ibrahim Mbaye as an example. I don't know to the level that Liverpool are interested. All I can say to you is that the representatives of him, his family, were with Liverpool in the London offices today in their conversations. That's not unusual. That could be to understand what type of fees they would like, or what type of wages he'd be looking for, imagery, all this stuff that, we don't understand properly. So take that with a pinch of salt. But lots of stuff today about Cody Gakpo potentially leaving for Spurs. So let's kind of bring it all together by bringing in the Cody Gakpo conversation. I'm going to do this chronologically if it's okay, because it's the easiest way for me to work through it. So, first, the report started from the Netherlands, and they said Cody Gakpo has reached a broad agreement with Spurs on personal terms. Spurs have stepped up their pursuit of the forward by making contact with Liverpool, and the chances of Gakpo making the move this summer have therefore increased significantly. On top of that, another report from the Netherlands, from Rick Elfrich, said Liverpool assessed in recent weeks whether Cody Gakpo could be sold. This is the interesting part. First they said yes, he could be sold. Then it was no, he can't be sold. And now all of a sudden again, yes, and they say there seems to be an opening. Spurs want to strike, and Gakpo is certainly open to that step. Another piece from the same journalist said Cody Gakpo already spoke with the Spurs coach last month. The conclusion was that he's definitely open to a transfer to Spurs. Liverpool now seems to be considering the move as well. So that journalist claiming that Cody Gakpo spoke with Roberto De Zerbi and was at least open to the possibility. More reports came out and said Gakpo is happy with the personal terms presented by Spurs, no issues there. Liverpool will demand £70 million green light once an attacker arrives. So I guess it could be that it's Gakpo out and Barcola and Mbaye in. I have to say could be, because I'm not at that level of information on Mbaye where I'm confident saying to you guys it's likely to happen or not. I don't know. But I can't see a world where Liverpool sell Gakpo and don't bring in another attacker. And if they do sell Gakpo and brought in Mbaye, just again as a jumping off point, would you have any concerns about the age profile of our wider players then? Because I've gone back and forth on this in my mind. And one way it excites me, and another way it kind of makes me nervous. It excites me because you'd have two 23-year-old wide players in Victor Munoz and Bradley Barcola. And then you'd have two kind of 18-year-old kids in Rio Engamoa and Ibrahim Mbaye. After that, maybe you've got Fede Chiesa, but I think he leaves. Not really many more options there if Gakpo leaves. So what concerns me is, would we have enough experience in wide positions? But the part that I kind of find myself wrestling with my own thoughts is, if there was one part of the pitch that I would say youthfulness is a positive, it's probably in the wide areas, because you want them taking their man on, you want them having that blistering pace, and you want them having that fearlessness. So if we have on one side, let's say, Victor Munoz and Rio on the right, and Mbaye and Gakpo on the left, or you can swap them around whichever way you want, it might be all right, Certainly set us up for the future. I don't think there's any denying that. You've got a lot of youth there, a lot of possibility to grow together, gel together, get better as we go along. But we'd have to look at it and understand that it is a bit of a project. And then, of course, you look into the central side of it. You've got Isak, who's in his prime right now, Ekitike to come back in. So I think that's probably a fair assessment of where it might go to. But there could also be a surprise in here, and maybe they look at the numbers around Mbappe and it doesn't work for them. Reports last night suggested that anything north of 40 million, or excuse me, anything below 40 million or 40 million euro won't get it done with PSG, but other reports say 50 million euro might get it done. So I guess the question I'd have is, and I asked this to Connor on the podcast earlier on, if you're a Liverpool Football Club, what's good business here to get if you wanted the two gents from PSG? What's a good number? Feel free to give it to me in pounds sterling or in euro. But what would be a fair valuation and a realistic one to get both of them out of PSG? As a jumping off point, I'd say, and I'm going to use euros because, you know, that's the money we spend here in Ireland. So I'm going to say, if you got Barcola for about 130 to 140 in euros, and Mbappe for about 150, so anywhere from 180 to 190 million euro, I think would be realistic valuation based in this window. I'm not saying it's good money, I'm not saying it's cheap, but looking in the window and seeing what others are going for, I think that kind of price range to me would feel realistic. Right, now what have we got here? They'd want 60 million plus for Sarr and he'd only be a backup for us, said somebody else. Jeremiah said 160 million pounds. You're going to have to help me out and convert that to euros, bro, because what's that, 210 maybe, 215, something like that? Keane said 170 million euro. That would be my ideal number, Keane. Yeah, that would be my ideal number. 170 million euro would be, I'd consider that a good deal for Liverpool based in this market if you could get both at that. 165 for It's JB. Chai said 150 million euro. I think that's, I mean, look, I wouldn't say no, bro. If we could get it done at that price, I wouldn't say no, but I'd be very surprised in a good way if it was quite that low. Scotty reckons 170 million pound. Mr. Acentino said 185 million euro. Ancient one YO, sorry, I can't see the rest of your name, mate. 160 million pound. Mr. Sharples, 180 million pound. Yeah, I don't think we're all a million miles apart here. So if you offset that then by the sale of Cody Gakpo for, let's say, 70. So doing the quick maths, let's call it 140 million pound, and then Cody Gakpo brings you back in 70. So that's an outlay of 70. Then you have an outlay of about 35 for Victor Munoz. That's 105. And then you have an outlay of 60 million quid, wasn't it? For Jeremy Jacquet. Then you bring in some money maybe from Curtis Jones going. I mean, it's still a pretty big outlay in the window, only for there wouldn't be as much ins and outs. And here's what the conclusion me and Connor came to earlier on when we were talking about this on the pod. It feels like we just don't have any more easy targets to move on and free up cash. Like, none of this is ideal. We've sold off a lot of players last year to recoup a lot of money. But this is why I still think we should be looking to move on some more, the likes of Harvey Elliott and stuff like that. So to bring it all back around to the previous question, it could be a busy end to the window, but quite how busy, I'm not really sure at this point.